Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here at Book Blather. If you're new here, I'm Dave, this is Olive, and we try to have a little fun while we talk about books and sometimes some other things to mostly help spread the joy of reading. So today we're doing our week 2 wrap-up of Horror Mayhem. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Horror Mayhem is a reading event in the month of May where we focus on reading short horror fiction as a way to dip your toes into it if you haven't yet experienced this genre. And so I will leave all the co-hosts for the reading event linked below, as well as the prompts if you want to follow those, and links to the bingo cards, which let you check off different subcategories in case you're interested in doing that to have a little more fun. So we will jump right into it. We had a really good week 2, I think. Would you think we had a really good week 2, right? We read, right? We read 2 books and 2 short stories, and we're excited to tell you about them all because we mostly really enjoyed them all. So, okay, the first book that we read is Psycho by Robert Bloch. And so the prompt for week 2 was to do something horror related to film. So we did follow this prompt, and we read Psycho because we have never read it before. And that has turned, of course, so Robert Bloch published Psycho in 1959, and the following year in 1960, there was an Alfred Hitchcock movie made based on that novel. It is a famous movie, and we actually intended to watch the movie again after we read the book, but we didn't get around to that. But we had never read it, so this book was really good. This was another one of those ones where we had no idea but we just know the movie, so we had no idea that the book behind it was that good, and we would have read it a long time ago if we'd known that. So I think just because the movie is so famous, I think most people know sort of like the twist behind the story, but for those that don't, I'm going to keep it spoiler free, and so just tell you what it's about without giving it away. So the basic plot is it centers around this character Norman Bates. Well, let me back up. It starts with this character Mary Crane, and she has a boyfriend. I forgot the boyfriend's name already. And they live in different spots. And Mary Crane is kind of a little fed up with life. So this happens right in the beginning. Mary Crane decides that she is going to take there's this $40,000 payment, which was worth a lot more money back then. $40,000 payment, that she's supposed to be handling for her job on a Friday afternoon. And she's just going to leave with the money and go and, meet up with her boyfriend, get him out of his debt, and so they can go start a new life together. And so she begins that trip, and along the way, she makes a stop at the Bates Motel. And at the Bates Motel, we meet our main character, Norman Bates. And so this is sort of an off the main path motel because she sort of takes a wrong turn and goes this very out of the way route. And she ends up at the Bates Motel, and this is run by Norman Bates and his mother. And so Norman Bates has a complicated relationship with his mother, who is very oppressive, and treats him kind of more like a little boy, even though I think he's supposed to be around like 40. And so his mother is difficult, and they have a complicated relationship. And Mary Crane stops there for the night, and Mary Crane never shows up at her boyfriend's house. And so there's this Mary's sister that lived with her in one city, and her boyfriend in another city. And when Mary ends up missing, they get together, and there's also an insurance agent from the company that Mary took the money from, and everybody's investigating what happened. And so in this story, you see a lot of it from the perspective of Norman Bates, but you also see some of it from the perspectives of these other different characters that are investigating Mary's disappearance. And so, but most of it you see from Norman's perspective, and you see his interactions with Mary and with his mother and with these people that are investigating what happened. And so it is the like I said, most of the story you see from Norman's perspective, and that is done really, really well because, of course, Norman is a complicated guy and he's an unreliable narrator, and so it is told very it's a very, very cool narrative, told the parts that are told from his perspective, and how how he's dealing with all these different individuals that are making his life difficult. And so I won't say any more than that. For I think, like I said, I think anybody that's familiar with the movie knows what the main deal is behind it. But I will say, even knowing that already going into the book, I still had a really, really good time with it, knowing that. And I didn't know, although I know the big thing, I didn't actually know the actual specific ending, which was also pretty cool and I really liked. So this book, if you haven't read it, it is definitely worth reading, even if you've already watched the movie. I had a really good time with it. I thought a really good time with it. Very fast paced. It really kept moving, especially because it was coming from these different characters, and it was really, really good. It was really, really good. Okay, so the next book we read is this. This is a book that we've had on the shelf for a couple years now and just never got to. This is Piercing by Ryu. I don't know if it's Murakami or Murakami. My Japanese translation is not that great, but so this book was published. So this is the Penguin version. This book was originally published in Japan back in 1994, but it was translated. I think the first English translation was 2007. This Penguin this translation is from 2007. And this is one of those horror books that's also what I would call a very, very disturbing book. It's not just paranormal horror or or slasher horror. It's really, really disturbing. This book, Murakami, he published I think more well-known book called In the Miso Soup, which we're going to be reading, and he published a book called Audition, which was made into a movie, and it's I haven't seen it, but it's known as like one of the most disturbing movies out there. And so we really, really liked this, and we are absolutely going to be moving on to his other books. Coin Locker Babies, I think, was another one. I think that's pretty well known. We're definitely going to be moving on to his other books. So this is one of those ones where, you feel a little funny saying it's like so disturbing. You feel a little funny saying that like you really, really enjoyed the book because based on the subject matter. But this book was crazy. So the main plot line, or what you're told the main plot line is there's this guy, our main character, Kawashimi, and so he's married, and they have a baby, an infant, and it starts out with him standing like above his own baby's crib. And he's got this like strange psychosis, right? He's living what seems like a normal life, but he has a strange psychosis where he feels this compulsion to, stab his baby with an ice pick. And so he knows it's wrong, right? And he knows so he keeps doing this like on a nightly basis. And he's got this strange compulsion. He knows it's wrong. He's a rational guy. And so, he's trying to figure out what to do to get past this. And so he decides that he is going to basically, in order to, prevent himself from doing this to his own child, that he's going to basically enact this atrocity on somebody else. And so I don't want to say too much about that because I don't want to spoil. It's not a super long book, so I don't want to spoil it. But that begins this adventure of where he goes, and he has a very, he takes detailed notes, gets his materials together and goes out on this, he gives his wife a story and goes out on this quest, and he has a good plan, and let's just say everything does not go according to plan. And so he, ends up. So, again, I had to be careful for spoilers, but let's just say he is not. So he, part of what you learn as you go through this, he has suffered abuse when he was younger, and that's part of a number of things have happened in his life, I think, which contribute to this psychosis that he has now. And let's just say he is not the only one in the story that has this sort of odd psychosis. Not the same psychosis, but different psychosis. So this going through this story, like he ends up having these interactions that are just like not too far into the book. All of a sudden you're like, whoa, ho, you did not see that coming and not know what was going to happen, and it just spirals from there, and you end up with multiple characters that have very troubled pasts, have experienced serious abuse, that is somewhat the genesis for these different psychoses that you have. So you have these people acting very unreliable, constantly vacillating between these emotional states, leading to like serious misperceptions and totally inconsistent perceptions of things, and total miscommunication. People have very different understandings of what's going on, and everybody's behavior keeps changing. So going through this book was like, it was like just constantly experiencing whiplash. It was like you constantly going, ho, like just another thing whacks you out of the out of the blue, and you're like, holy cow. And it almost felt like a fight scene in an action movie between two evenly matched guys, but much more complex than that. But it was really crazy, and it brings you up on this high, and then keeps you up on this high, and then like it kind of just drops you. I mean, like the ending is good, and there's kind of closure at the ending. Like I thought the ending was actually kind of cool, but it's like it kind of just then like drops you there. There's no like there. I don't want to give any more away than that, but it was like this book was just. I mean, it was like really amazing in the way that it explored it just going back and forth and exploring the psyche and the constant vacillation of these just, like I said, I'm repeating myself now, but just this constant vacillation of this emotional states of multiple different characters and how it was affecting each other, and it was crazy. This was a pretty wild ride, and it was pretty good. I would definitely recommend it. And like I said, we're gonna be going on to more of this. So probably based on everything I said, it probably goes without saying. If you need triggers. The trigger warnings for this. Again, I don't want to spoil things, but there's physical violence, sexual abuse. So you got to know that going in. You know what I mean? It's rough, but it's a pretty crazy ride. So it was really good. Okay, and then we read 2 short stories, and so the 2 short stories we read out of. We're continuing to work out of. This is one of the anthologies we're continuing to work out of. This is Stephen King's Night Shift. So this early anthology he put out in the early 70s, and the 2 stories that we, it had a price tag on it, and I tried to like get it off, and I had trouble with it. It was I hate that. It's because this is an old copy. It's a nice step back cover, right? And so it had a sticker on there, but it was like it was so old. It was like the old Bradley sticker. You remember Bradley's? and so I tried it all with the hair dryer, razor blade, all that kind of stuff, and it was it was so old it wasn't gonna. So I just left it. I was gonna end up like destroying the cover. So it's better than it was, I think. Anyway, we read two stories out of here. One was the first one was The Ledge. And so this was a story that was first. A lot of these stories were previously published. And so The Ledge was last week we had read a story called what was it? Quitters Inc., which we actually had recognized when we read it, even though we had never read it before because it was in the movie Cat's Eye, which used a couple stories from this book. And so The Ledge is another story that was in Cat's Eye. And so that story was first published in 1976 in Penthouse magazine. And that what that story is about is there's this guy, and he's going to, right in the beginning, he's like meeting this, basically what appears to be a mobster. And he has fallen for the mobster's wife, and he's kind of just, trying to be brave about it and telling the mobster that, he's can't stop him. He's going to leave with the wife. And so the mobster basically sets him up and has this whole setup and then offers him this deal. And so they're up in this high-rise apartment complex. And so he offers them this very risky deal. I mean, you can hear it's called The Ledge, right? So I don't want to give anything else more away than that. But he kind of has to take the deal, and so that he can, if he doesn't do it, he's going to have a problem because he's been set up. But if he does do it, he's going to get to go on his happy way with a bunch of money and the wife, and so that's what it's about. And so it's one of those. It's not incredibly deep story, but it's a very very high tension story where you're on the edge of your seat, like as you're going through watching this, and of course twist ending and everything. So that was good. We enjoyed that story. Then the second one we've read out of here is called The Lawnmower Man, and that was published in 1975 in Cavalier magazine. So I mean, Stephen King was apparently very selective with the magazines that he would publish. Most of these stories were published in those magazines back then. But anyway, so so The Lawnmower Man this is about a guy that he had some boy that was like mowing his lawn all the time, and I forget why. I think maybe he has a daughter, and he like basically fired the boy or didn't hire the boy back that year because I think it might have been because of the daughter, because like the daughter had there was a crush going on or something. I think that was why. I don't remember. Anyway, so he doesn't hire him back this year, but then his grass is overgrowing, and so he needs to get somebody to cut it. So he calls this new company that specializes in cutting lawns. And so this one was just sort of like one of those just like fantastical, wacky stories. You know what I mean? It was a fun story. It's not at all a believable thing. It's like I don't want to give anything away, but it's just like wacky. These mowers that come, the lawnmowers, this lawnmower man that comes, and his company are like just like they're whacked. Okay, let's just leave it that way. But so interesting thing is that there was a movie called The Lawnmower Man, which I remember seeing many years ago, and which was supposedly based on this story. And in that movie, there was some guy who had intellectually had some challenges, and he was hired to mow the lawn, and then somebody did some experiments on him to raise his intelligence, and so that that happens, and so then a number of things happen as a result of that. That movie was nothing like this story. There was somebody mowing lawns. I mean, that was pretty much it. And so it was originally, that movie was actually titled Stephen King's, The Lawnmower Man, and my understanding is that Stephen King had a problem with that because it wasn't really close at all to the story, and I think that's why he had a problem with it, and so they ended up removing his name from it. But that's what it originally. So now then it became just the Lawnmower Man, but it was originally Stephen King's Lawnmower Man, and I don't know why when they do stuff like that. I guess there's value in using the name. You have popular author or a popular book, and so it was like that World War Z movie. It was absolutely nothing like the book. Same thing. It was absolutely nothing like it. And I mean this story. Don't expect, if you know that movie, don't expect that movie. This story is just about this like lawnmower man that comes and turns into be something else, and like really crazy, and it's like a little stressful and scary for a couple minutes, and that it's not at all like that movie. So anyway, but we enjoyed it. It was fine. It was just a fun story, so I mean, it was probably that was probably our least favorite. I mean, not probably, it was definitely our least favorite of the 4 things we read this month, and but we enjoyed them all. So yeah, so that was it. We read Psycho by Robert Bloch, Piercing by Ryu Murakami, and 2 short stories from Stephen King's Night Shift, The Ledge and The Lawnmower Man. So we enjoyed them all. We have already started on the next 2 things for week 3. We're already a bit in, but actually neither one of those, if you saw our 2 TBR at the beginning of the month, neither one of those were on the list. Those weren't expected, but that's half the fun. If we 3/4 follow our TBRs, that's good for us. We're such mood readers. So when we have these events, we stick with it 3/4 of the way. That's pretty good. That's success. So we hadn't planned on these. We're enjoying them. I'm not going to mention them. We'll keep it a surprise for the week 3 wrap up. But so let us know if any of the things we mentioned today. Let us know if you guys have read any of them and what you thought of them, or if you're planning to read them. And otherwise, let us know what you are reading from Horror Mayhem if you're partaking. Like I said, all the information is below. If this interests you, it's not too late. As I said before, I didn't even like horror until I never read horror until a couple years ago when I started BookTube, and I tried it out, and I love the genre now. So you might too. This is a perfect event for you to give it a try. Try something like less than 200 little horror novella or a couple short stories, less than 200 pages, and just to try it out. So if you don't have anything substantive to say, you can always leave Olive a puppy emoji. She always she pops up. She knows the words, I think, at this point. She knows it's that time of the video where she's going to get a pick-me-up. She's going to get a little pick-me-up treat, right? She's pretty smart, this one. I had another dog when I was a kid. Great dog, very loyal dog. This Olive, totally different animal. They're like 2 different species in terms of intelligence. She's a bit of a whip. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Did I say you can always leave Olive a puppy emoji because she always likes to see those? So thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again very soon. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you next time.